What's up, Adam Gilbert?
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
A little tired. A little tired. Interesting to notice what gives us energy, but overall good. Overall good out here in Connecticut. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's great to have you.
It's great to be had. It's interesting to stay, at your house and see the progression of you coming out of Deloitte by yourself. I think we met a few years after that to living in a mansion. It's a mansion on an acre. What a journey.
It's been quite the journey. Ernst & Young actually is where I started. It's been a wild ride. 16 years. 16 years.
You are one of the true people out there that loves their job, I would say. And I've always admired how much you've supported me and how much when I'm uncertain of my job or my work or anything, you've always been 100% like, that was it. I never questioned it. How early did you know your purpose? And how did you find that?
I think, watching my father's health kind of deteriorate mentally and physically throughout the years until he passed away certainly was a big inspiration for my own health and fitness journey. And seeing how when you don't have your health, nothing else matters. So I think, from an early age, I've been so passionate about health and fitness and helping other people achieve their health and fitness goals. So when I started my business, it was more just like, I want to do more of the same and continue to help people. I really do view this as my calling. It's my life's work. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to, even though it's been 16 years, which is crazy, it feels like we're just getting started.
How did you find the calling? How did you know it was your calling? Because I think so many people out there are wondering. And I know for me, for so many years, I ignored or didn't realize I already knew my calling.
Health and fitness has always been a passion of mine, right? So like I'd come home from, school or basketball practice and like I'd work out in my room, or I'd be reading, muscle and fitness magazines, or I'd be reading, all sorts of books, any book I can get my hands on. So I think it's like, what do you do in your free time? What do you do when, you can do anything you want? And for me, it was always health and fitness. Like I just loved working out. I loved nutrition. I loved kind of seeing my body transform and then seeing how I transformed mentally and how much confidence it, built in me. And it just, I think it's what do you do when what do you do when you can do anything?
So two things with that. One, what happened to your dad? What was happening with his health and fitness?
So when I was in 7th grade, my parents were divorced. He was having a heart attack. He called my sister. She was actually learning how to drive. So she was a junior. Yeah, she was a junior in high school. He's like, I'm sweating. I think I'm having a heart attack. We drove him to the hospital. He was having a heart attack. A few days later, he had triple bypass surgery. So seeing him kind of, hooked up to all these monitors and, after the surgery was really scary. I just always hated hospitals. And then later that year, actually, he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And he was just, once he got that diagnosis, it kind of explained things because he was always tired. His speech started slurring. He wasn't able to walk that great. And, unfortunately, physically he deteriorated. And then mentally he did too. And like, I don't really have many memories of playing with my father. He was always tired. He was always, just not feeling well. We didn't get to do many things. So that kind of, that's sadly, that was my experience with him until, he passed away.
And how did you think that this should be my profession, this should be my calling, this should be what I should work on all day for money?
So I think when you see that firsthand, that your father is sick, constantly going to doctors, constantly monitoring his health, like, I think it's for me, it was definitely a fear. It's like, I don't want to have to deal with this when I'm older. I want to do everything I possibly can to be healthy and fit. So that certainly spurred my passion for health and fitness. Also, my parents were divorced. So I always felt like I needed to kind of be the man of the house. And I felt like I wanted to be strong and, just in case something happened, it was me, my sister, and my mom for a while. So I think it was a combination of those two things that just really like spurred my passion for it. And then it's like, this is amazing. I love this. the way I feel at times, I want everyone in the world to experience this.
Why not keep it as a hobby? And I think that's a common thing for people. Like, should I do my passion? Should I not? And it seems like both of us have made careers out of our interests.
So I think there's certainly a route where you can keep it as a hobby. For me, I think the American dream, or any dream per se, is being able to turn your passions into an income. So for me, I chose to figure out a way. How can we turn this? How can we monetize this? But there's certainly an avenue where you continue your passion and you don't try to make money from it. But for me, the dream was, how could I turn, what I love and marry it with entrepreneurship and, figure out a way to make a living from it.
When you were working at Ernst & Young, did you have a freedom number? This is a number that I talk about a lot, which is the number you need to be able to work on whatever you want so you can do whatever you want. Do you have one? Or what was, Jason, we can hit this. What was your freedom number?
You mean, what would it take for me to leave Ernst & Young?
Yeah, or the amount of money you wanted as you started building that as a side hustle. Because you were doing it, on the side while you worked at EY.
So I quit Ernst & Young cold turkey. I hadn't started My Body Tutor yet. It's just in the past, I was always helping people with their health and fitness. And that's kind of where the idea came from. Whereas I was always kind of the go-to guy for health and fitness. I'd give people health and fitness advice. I'd give them a nutrition plan, an exercise plan, and then I'd see them a week or two later, depending on client obligations. And it was always the same story. It was always, I love the plan you made for me, but. And the but was I got caught up with my, kids, work, happy hour life. And that's where the opportunity came, or the idea came. It's like, all right, these people have a plan that they like. We came up with it together, but they couldn't follow through. And that's where the idea of accountability, daily accountability came into play. But for the number, for me, it was just I was so miserable going to Ernst & Young every day. I mean, within the first week, I remember having a stomachache going to work. And I remember telling my mom, I can't believe this. I feel like I should be happier. And she's like, people would kill to be in your shoes. They would do anything. You're living in New York City. And, I just I feel like I'm meant to be doing more. This is just not meaningful. And I didn't like it. And literally within that first week, I was kind of plotting my exit.
What was the number when you started that you wanted to hit, that you were dreaming?
I don't know if I really had a number. I mean,
I'm going to keep asking until you give a number. Because everyone has a freedom number or has some number that they're trying to hit so that they're like, wow, I'm really doing the thing I really wanted to be doing. And that's what I think more people need to just be mindful of for themselves, right? If they're aspiring to be an entrepreneur.
Well, I mean, to be clear, I quit Ernst & Young and I had not started My Body Tutor yet. I quit it to start it. So for me, it was I'm giving myself, 6 to 9 months. I had some money saved in my bank, not much, but it was we're going all in here. Whereas I think, though, there's certainly an avenue where you can say, I'm going to work on my side hustle, and then if I make a certain amount, then I can leave. But for me, I was, 22, 21 when I quit Ernst & Young. It was 2 years out of college, and it was I'm just so miserable. I need to leave.
Was there a plan B? So there wasn't. I'll make you ask one. There wasn't. Jason, we can edit this. Is that because I thought you got some people already you were working with at EY.
So I was working with them informally. It wasn't the idea for My Body Tutor hadn't started. I wasn't making money from it. It was just a hobby. It was just, hey, Adam, you obviously work out. You're obviously into health and fitness. Can you help me? But there was no income from it whatsoever.
All right, well, let's fast forward then. Let's skip the whole freedom number thing. You have a number. I swear to God, I'm just asking the wrong question. So let's fast forward to today, because today I would say you're the $1 Million Fitness Coach.
That's interesting branding.
How's that feel?
Feels weird because I never kind of talk about money. I never talk about my success, really. For me, my success is in our success stories. For me, it's all the coaches that we work with and, that are part of My Body Tutor that get to do what they love doing every day. That's the way I look at it. So it kind of feels weird. Certainly proud of it, but I never lead with that. I never really talk about it, really.
How long until your business made it?
Probably in year 9, year 8 or 9. Yeah. And there was many, many people along the way that said, you can never scale your business. You can never do what you want to do at a bigger scale. I'm still thinking about those people every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like it's never to prove them wrong. For me though, and we were talking about this earlier, the real reward for me is getting to do what I do. Like I love transforming people physically and mentally. Like it's just besides being a dad, to me, it's just the most rewarding thing ever. And that's the goal. Like I know how I felt working at Ernst & Young. And I think there was one time where we were walking in the city and like, ooh, I'm getting a stomachache. And we were like in Times Square where the office was. And like just seeing the sign, like just it was like a visceral reaction of like, oh my God, I can't do that again. So for me, like everything else is like an amazing side effect. It really is.
I do have a belief that there's about a 10-year rule to make a meal. Genuinely. Like, unless you're inheriting it or robbing it or getting lucky with some break, if you stick with something 10 years, you get it. That's basically what I've done with mine. I like to put it about 10 years all in. It sounds similar with your business of what you did. What were these inflection points in your business? From the first customer, to 1,000 to the different inflections that help the trajectory of it.
Yeah. So I mean, the first few customers, I started this back in 2007 when I don't know if you guys remember. Some of you will.
I'm just gonna check this.
I'm dating myself. AOL Instant Messenger, AIM. So my first customers came through AIM. So I actually had our website and it said like, if you have any questions, feel free to IM in. And I'll never forget IMing with my initial customers. And it was like, hey, just give me a chance. We can help you. If it doesn't work, I'll give you your money back. And it was really just all about, hey, can you give me a chance? And I was IMing with people for, hours originally. So it was first getting those, first 3 to 5 customers. And we started just with colleges. So I started with, I quit Ernst & Young in January 2007, started My Body Tutor in February 2007, and I knew spring break was approaching. So the way I started it was, let's help college kids get ready for spring break. So we got those first 3 to 5 spring breakers or college kids getting ready for spring break. They loved it. And then it was just a 6-week program. They started referring their friends. And then the real kind of inflection point was when they started referring me to their friends and family, not in college. And then we changed it to a monthly membership. And then I remember actually very early on, Good Morning America found us. Actually, we had done some work with Thrillist back then. And they loved what we were doing. And Good Morning America picked us up. Because it was, back, no one was offering, accountability, right? Our whole thesis from day one is, for the most part, people know what's good for them. They know what's not good for them. The real question is, why can't they do it, right? Why can't they follow through? And everything we do is designed to help people follow through. So I think they resonated with that idea. So Good Morning America picked us up, which was really cool. And I remember, I'll never forget, telling my mom, hey, Mom, watch Good Morning America today. And because she thought I was absolutely crazy for being Ernst & Young. She did not support it. She was like, what about health insurance? What about this? What about that? And it was just nothing but fear. And of course, as a parent now, I totally get it. You want your child to be comfortable and secure. So there was a lot of fear on my part. She did not make it easy, but I'm my own man. I was paying my own rent, all that stuff. So it didn't really matter. It would have been nice to have a blessing. But I think that was a big inflection point, being Good Morning America. And then it just, slow and steady. And it's just recently we've been featured on some, podcasts and this and that. People are like, oh, you're blowing up. It's like, bro, we've been at this for 16 years. It's been a slow and steady grind for a while.
Yeah. So some of the different, because I think these are interesting for anybody who's starting a business or has one that's going. So it sounds like a pricing change and pricing evolution. We've talked about the pricing many times. And so it went from a one-time payment, what was it, $50 or something?
It was $75, yeah.
And then what's the average price point now?
$299 a month.
Is that the starting price point?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I want to talk about that. So the pricing evolution is $299 a month. Some exposure from, it sounds like Thrillist
and, some authors and because people like what we're doing it was a unique idea. So being featured in a few books, a few blogs really helped. You gave me a shout out early on, I remember, because when we started working together, which was cool. It's been crazy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other flex points I've observed of you. I think one of them was how you went from the coach to the leader. I think that's been an inflection point that I've observed in your business where you love coaching, you love fitness, like you really love your job.
Yeah.
And it was stepping back and saying, all right, I'm not going to coach these. I'm like, you should do it. And I always use you as an example, like, hey, if you want to do the coaching in this kind of work, do it. And if you want to make more money, maybe you can do that and hire a CEO. But I think that's something that was an inflection point where now you have like 50 coaches or something.
Like 75, yeah.
Yeah, so 75 coaches, and now you're coaching the coaches.
Yeah, that was a really big kind of mindset shift for me. Is like I really wanted to coach everyone, and I realized if I want to impact more people, I need to let go. I was the bottleneck, and it was very difficult. But now I've found I'm very passionate about coaching our coaches. I still work with a few people, so I can kind of stay there a little bit. But coaching the coaches is something I've become very passionate about because it's like I'm still getting to impact people just in a different way.
What other inflection points do you think of?
So I think it's been just certainly being introduced to people in corporate America was a big inflection point. So starting with college kids was interesting, but then really realizing most of our clientele was people 25, just anyone in corporate America who just was not able to stay consistent with their diet and exercise. Like that was a huge moment for us where it's like, all right, we're not actually a college spring break, get you ripped for spring break service, right? Like that's how we started. It's really where we help people devise a diet and exercise plan for them that is catered and customized to them, and then we help them stick with it. And people in corporate America who are very successful or successful in their life, but they just can't kind of crack the code in their health and fitness.
The 2 comments on that. One, it sounds like some things have not had an inflection point or a change in your trajectory, which is like the accountability, which is nice. And even with AppSumo's story, I come back and realize at the end of the day, we go find a cool product, we get a good price in it, and we send it out. Like if we can do that really well, the business will work.
Yep.
And so for yours, it's like, we're going to check in.
So our mission since day one has been, we are going to help you stay consistent better than any company in the world, any service in the world. And what we offer to this day is certainly better and it's more, I would say, sophisticated, but the basic core component is daily accountability. And that was the same thing in 2007.
Which is fascinating around how many people, I remember, over the 15 years, when we've been friends since 2008, how many different apps have come out, how many different people have started a fitness coaching program, but you've gotten the results. And at the end of the day, there is something, whether you've written a book, whether people love Tim Ferriss's book, or people will like my book, it's like you're going to get some results. And the same thing with your program. It's like, hey, you buy my Body Tutor, you're going to get some results because it's about sustainability and consistency, not about some fad or something that won't actually last. Now, I think that's impressive. One comment here is, can you visualize or imagine a future inflection point?
It's interesting. I guess it's hard. I mean, there is perhaps like, I write a book one day. And I think, that perhaps is the next kind of level. And I've always said, kind of like you, it's like, you've been in the trenches, you're doing it day in and day out. You've been at it for a long time. Like you are a businessman, you are an entrepreneur, and then you're writing a book. And like, I've been in the trenches where I've worked with thousands and thousands of people now. I've always wanted to do that first and then write a book. Whereas I think a lot of people just kind of write a book first, and then they kind of build things off that. So I would say, perhaps a book one day would be the next inflection point.
This is red. Let's make sure it's red.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure it's not like.
Yeah.
As we were talking about your inflection points, I wanted to understand briefly, because I remember when your pricing, I think, was $99 and $150 or something like that, and you were talking about going from $150 to $199, or it was even lower than that. And I remember the amount of concern it gave you. It was like, dude, I don't think I can do it. This is so expensive. I feel so bad about it. And I think you genuinely wanted people to get the results, which is that, at the end of the day, that is what matters. And it's interesting how now, tuning in, you say without hesitation. Can you walk me through your mindset? Because I do think that's a very common problem in businesses.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no doubt price signals something. It signals quality, hopefully. I think a lot of times people just charge a lot because they think it signals quality. But if you don't have the experience and the program or whatever it is you're selling to back it up, then I think it's going to quickly bite you in the butt. But, for us, we worked up to it, right? And the reason why we ultimately raised our prices were people were always saying, like, you're not charging enough for what you're offering. You're offering daily coaching. Like, there's people who charge thousands of dollars a month for fitness coaching, and they check in with their clients like once a week. I mean, to this day, people are like, you're not charging nearly enough. And for us, it was, all right, we need to raise the prices, but it was A, because I think the results warrant that, but also B, I want to pay our coaches more. And it was like, all right, for us to figure out this revenue model, this business model, we need to charge more, but I think it's well worth it considering we're helping them lose weight, get fit in a sustainable way, right? This is the last program our clients do. And after a while, when you continue to hear people saying, like, you're not charging enough, you start to think about it, and it makes it a little easier.
Yeah, because I do think it's not, I don't think it's imposter syndrome. It's like, are they getting the value? Because we've gone to a meal, and I've always thought about this example. It's like you go to a meal, same exact meal, two different prices. It changes the experience.
Yeah.
And what it sounds like for you is, especially if someone's starting out, which we'll talk about, building up that confidence, building up the results, and being like, yeah, it's worth it.
Right. My confidence is a direct results, or I should say, is a result of the results we get for our clients. Right. My confidence came from working with thousands of clients, whereas I think some people kind of put on this confidence. It was hard. Like, I started cheap, worked my way up. Some people still think we're cheap. But yes, I think you have to build up to that. And when you can deliver on your service, A, it gives you confidence because you have all the support and results to back you up. But B, it's like, all right, like, I want to help as many people as I can now.
I also like the evolution of the business evolved. Like, the core stays the same, but the business evolved, the pricing evolved, who your customer evolved. And I think people assume it just stays fixed when it really never does. Like, I remember that you made me think about the MailChimp. They had a great blog post around, like, your pricing is never going to be the same. And I was like, oh, I guess I used to think it's always going to be a fixed thing. Now, if someone's watching this or listening to this and they want to be a coach in something else, like, let's just say they want to be a nutrition coach. That's too complicated. Let's not do that. Okay, what's another coaching thing? Like, you want to be a boxing coach. It's a lot of fitness when to the coaches. How would you go about getting your first client today if you were wanting to have a business around coaching?
Yeah, so I would always start small. Like, I think small is the new big. I think for me, I always wanted to kind of do my own thing around fitness. And for a while, I had this like analysis paralysis where I felt like I had to start the next Google or Facebook, whatever it was, like this big company. And it wasn't until I started small or thinking smaller that I was able to actually take action. And it was like, all right, you love this so much, just start working with 3 people, right? And that's what I did. And it's like, find your first 3 people, deliver them incredible service, get them incredible results, treat them like you would treat any family member or friend. And they won't be able to, they're going to tell everyone they know because their experience is going to be so powerful. So you can really start an entire business around 3 to 5 people. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in, you have to do online advertising, this and that. It's like, to me, go in person, meet people in person, like, talk to people. And it's not that hard to get 3 to 5 people. I think sometimes we just feel like we have to do all this stuff. It's like, start small, go small.
I love that. You were talking earlier that you have 75 different coaches. And as I've, running AppSumo, and we have a certain amount of teammates, and I want to learn more about coaching. So what are 3 ways that if someone's a leader in a business, in a nonprofit, in a group, or in a whatever it is, family, like someone even talked to me recently, coaching and leadership is part of relationships. And so you've worked with 75 different coaches and much more beyond that. Like, what have you learned? What are 3 tips to being a better coach?
So I would say, number 1, you really want to be empathetic, right? You want to understand where people are coming from. You want to meet them where they are. You want to be able to articulate how the person is feeling. Because if you can meet them where they are, if you can understand where they are in their journey, then it's a lot easier for them to kind of say, all right, this person gets me. And we all need that connection, whether it's with your spouse, or business partner or client or whatever it is. Like, you want the person to feel like they get you. So I'd say that's number one. Number two is not being afraid to kind of hold them accountable and like calling them out. We always say it's like, best friends kind of, talk shit to each other. Like in that, like, hey, if you're not showing up or if you're not doing this, like, I'm going to let you know. And of course, always talk great about them behind their back, right? Whereas most people, it's like talk shit behind their back and, you're kind of fake in front of them. So, you need to be able to call them out. Obviously, as we know, it's like how you say it, not what you say. But if you're genuinely a caring person, and I'm assuming if you want to be a coach or you're in a leadership position, you need to be caring about your people. It's hard to go wrong, right? But you need to call them out and say, hey, I think you can do better, or, what's getting in the way here, and not being afraid of that. And I would say the last thing is, if you're a coach, it's very important for you to constantly raise your game and constantly level up yourself. And I think, to me, if a coach isn't improving themselves, if they're not working on their own journey, then, why bother with that coach? And I think as a leader, as a father, as an entrepreneur, as a husband, like, I'm always trying to level up and always trying to improve myself. And when you do that, it just naturally is going to raise your leadership abilities, and you're going to also be inspired, right? You can't inspire others if you're not feeling inspired yourself.
Yeah, totally. We were talking about that even earlier, and talking about our vision, and I would genuinely say the past year I was just not excited. And so I feel like the vision, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And now I'm like, yo, what we're doing is fire. And someone asked me, it's like, how are you going to motivate people? I'm like, I don't have to. I'm motivated.
Right.
And I'm going to find people who are very motivated about what we're about to work on. Other resources or anything that you check out and to learn more about coaching, or people you've read from or admired in terms of their coaching styles?
So I think my coaching style is definitely kind of, I played sports as a kid, and I think any athlete, you kind of learn from the coaches you've had. You know what resonates with you, what doesn't resonate with you. But I also think what makes coaching so interesting is what resonates for me might not resonate for other people, right? So someone might like, a really hard-nosed person, and some people might like more like a cheerleader, right? And that's one of the benefits is, when you work with us, like, we ask you what your coaching preference is. But people who, I've kind of learned from, I would say, I love studying like the pro coaches. I love, watching and kind of seeing what they do. I think you can learn a lot about what someone does versus what they necessarily say, the type of coach they are. So I would say it's a combination of just kind of learning from others, but just kind of taking in, all the coaching I went through as a child and saying, like, this works, this doesn't work, and kind of putting my own, spin on it.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing that, with that Larry Jesnick guy, the basement guy, you guys have a basement here, which is so cool. I didn't know it existed. California people don't have basements. And one thing he said, which I definitely resonate with, which is like, your job as a coach, and this is what you were saying as well, is like, is to have the highest standard and to hold people to that high standard. And people enjoy it. The right people will enjoy that. And so I really appreciate that. And you're kind of commenting, well, like, how do I raise the bar and get these people to level up?
Yeah, totally. It feels good to level up. And, I think when there's a gap between your intentions and actions, unhappiness ensues. And when your intentions and actions are in alignment, I think you just naturally feel happier. And helping people do that, helping people follow through on what they want and what they say they're going to do is really empowering and makes them feel awesome.
I've really changed my coaching leadership, I would say, leadership style specifically, dramatically this year more than ever before. I would say, I don't know where it came from for me, but I'm much more of a, this is what's wrong with what you're doing. I don't know if I learned it from Zuckerberg. My mom isn't really like that, or my parents weren't. But a lot of times people would come to me and I'm like, here's what's wrong here. Here's, like, for example, give me a marketing, like, here's what we're doing Black Friday. I'm like, well, here's everything I'm seeing you're not doing. That's my first response.
Right. And
the two things I've dramatically changed in 180 is, like, I'm really trying to recognize the positive right away.
Yep.
Because it's like, because what I recognize is it motivating to just only get told what's wrong?
Right. Right.
It's like, it's super discouraging. Totally. So Mitchell on our team, he's one of our younger guys, or Kellen. My first thing is, what do they do well that I already like? And then how do I motivate them in a positive way to the outcome in an optimistic way to the outcome versus I think historically, like, here's what's wrong and why didn't you do it the way I wanted?
Yep.
And that's been a shift for me. And that's a kind of, maybe for others it's very obvious. Maybe for you, I think you're naturally a more empathetic, caring person. And you're like, oh man, let's rah rah. I'm like, no, you suck, dude. Let's come on, get your shit together. Like that's what's in my head. But now it's in my head still.
Right.
But I pause.
Yep.
And I'm like, here's what I like that you did. And let me try to help you get to the outcome that you're going to feel good about and get to the standard I want. But also you're doing it in a way that you're excited to go do it. And then you'll have more of your own initiative in the future. And I ask the team for feedback all the time. I ask for feedback.
Yeah.
And people are like, no, you're so happy these days.
That's amazing.
And they're happy.
Right. I mean, that self-awareness that you were able to correct that, because I do think ultimately, you never want to hit them with the negative right away. Hit them with the love first. Here's what you're doing great. But, let's try this is, I think typically we'll get a better response.
100%. And also what I've observed from my leadership style is like, how do I work on the solution versus just complain about the problem?
Yep.
There was something we worked on a Black Friday video recently, and the video production was fire. I was like, they did a set. They bought an old Apple laptop. They put boxes up. They built a wooden wall.
Wow.
Our team did. I was like super impressed. And then we spent 5 hours filming a 30-second ad. And we had 2 writers work on this. We had 4 people filming it. We paid $1,000 for the room plus food. And in my head, I'm like, are we getting our money's worth? But going back and telling the team that is not productive.
Right.
And so I do try to think, am I trying to just tell them something that's wrong, or how do we productive to improve for the future? So when I have a meeting with them, with our branding guy, it's like, oh, this is great. How do we now get more value and maximize what we're trying to do in these rooms? And why don't you go try to think of and solve that? I'm like, oh, cool. I'd like to go solve that problem.
Yep.
So how do I put the trust and the empowerment down on the team?
Totally. I think it's like, the old build your people up and then they'll kind of build the whatever you're trying to accomplish versus just like micromanaging. And, if you trust those people, it's amazing what they can do.
The best micromanagers say they don't micromanage. That's what I've noticed. Because I say I don't micromanage. I'm like, dude, believe me. This is a Trump thing. Believe me. Guy. But I micromanage it. Like they post to Twitter and I'm like, hey, I don't like how you did that Twitter thing. It's like, is that really exciting him? And now when I do give feedback, a lot of times right after I give it, for example, I gave some feedback about our Twitter ads, or we were trying to run a new Twitter campaign and it was 2 weeks and it wasn't live. And so I said, hey, I'm just curious. And that's a good opening phrase to leadership, or hey, I wonder.
Yeah.
It seems like this might be taking a while. What's going on? Or how can I help you expedite it?
Right.
And Nick was like, yeah, it is taking a while. I'm going to fix that.
Right.
And then I asked him afterwards, I said, hey, Nick, how did I approach that? Like, do you have any feedback? He's like, no, you're right. And I appreciate how you asked. And you offered to potentially help or ask, hey, is there anything I can do to help you here?
And I know that's not easy for you because you are maniacal about action and just you get shit done right away. And hats off to you for doing that, because it's clearly paying off, and it's been interesting to see you change as a leader.
Yeah, for both of us, man. It's different to run an app studio by myself. There's no way I can run what we run just by myself, and same with you with My Body Tutor. And the other thing I was even working on the plane right here, just as people talk about SOPs, the standard operating procedures, but I don't know if anyone ever shares what it actually is.
Yeah. And
so this has been a really big breakthrough for myself, and realizing like the only way I can scale and that the company can also live beyond me is having what is the core, and we have 2 certain ones, which is what is our core behaviors of a teammate, I'm going to call them employees but teammates here, and what is the core behaviors of business operations. So how do we like to have our net operating income targets? Like that's in the business operation. We call it our MOM. It's our master operating manual. And then we have our teammate playbook, which is test and invest. I won't get into the show, but like certain things so that people know how to behave. And like the more that information is pushed down and disseminated, people know how to be successful.
Yeah.
And I think those are SOPs, what other people call it, but I don't think it's generally very explained.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've gone through something similar.
Oh, totally. I mean, we have, there's certain things we want all of our coaches to kind of embody, and, we certainly hire for that. We want all of our clients to have the same experience. But we also want coaches to be who they are, right? So there's that balance of, I know when someone starts My Body Tutor, I'm genuinely and sincerely and truly excited for them because I know it's on the other end. I know kind of how they're going to come out. It's kind of like, a thing starts as this and then comes out on the other end once they're done. because we have our kind of proven methodology. But I also, again, encourage our coaches to be who they are, because I think, if you kind of push too much or you micromanage too much, I want coaches to, add their own, flavor and their own twists and all that. But there's also core things that we teach that I do believe and know are super impactful. And I want our clients to know.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through you and you've helped me with this for so many years. And I've been an advocate, and I think it's a good lesson for any business out there. It's like, if you help your customer get the result, there's a really good chance you can tell other people, which I definitely, I want to, because I've gotten this result that I want to help others with. I think the call out, and we'll move on, is with your coaching. I think the one differentiator that I thought is very unique, I would say, in how you coach and how your coaches coach, is that it's positive. Because when I tell people, I'm like, yeah, one of my best friends, Adam, mybodytutor.com, like, he's helped me, really cool business. And I always say it, I didn't actually realize until now, I was like, they only do positive coaching.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people are used, especially with diets, like my buddy Isaac, who needs your service. It was like, what can't I eat? What are they going to scold me about? What am I getting punished for? And I think the fact that you guys flipped that, where it's like I remember I drank too much this time, right? Some pizza. You're like, was it good? How was the pizza? Cool. Okay, well, what's the next thing you're going to do? That's what we can control. Like, what happened here, so we can understand it for the future. It's never making me feel bad. And I love that about your guys' style.
Thank you. I think, shame-based rarely works. I think starting from a very restrictive standpoint rarely works, especially for the long term. Instead of like, here's what you can eat, it's like, hey, let's take what you eat, let's find your non-negotiables and build a plan around that. And that's just, that the whole idea here is, again, sustainable success. I want this to be the last program people do. And, I know shame-based, just like fear-based doesn't usually last. And, restriction rarely lasts too. I mean, eventually you kind of snap, kind of like a rubber band, you go back to your old ways.
Lately, I think if you can outlast people, you can outwin people. And I think that's true for different areas. And I think specifically with diet. And I also think about it with content creation. My goal with a lot of the content lately, all I say in my head is, you just have to make it 10 years. Not even just have to. I want to make it 10 years. So how do I set myself up to do this for the next 10 years? And I think the same thing goes for your programs, where it's like, and I love what your phrase, like, this is the last program you need. Right? Because it is like, how do I set you up that it's not about having an extreme diet where you're drinking on weekends, or you're only eating like whatever new fad diet that's the hit of the moment.
Yeah, totally. And I think to your point, though, it's also like, I think, the question you might come up with after what you just said is like, how do you make it 10 years? And I think the key is you have to pick something that you are truly passionate about and something that is kind of mission driven versus opportunity driven. And I think if you're just chasing opportunities, then you're just on to the next thing. Whereas if you're mission driven, like, this is my life's work. Like, I experienced it with my own father. I don't want anyone else to have to go through that. Like, I'm going to be doing this no matter what, right? And that's why it's a mission for me. It doesn't matter what else there is. So I think if you can find something that you're passionate about and something that you can kind of be mission driven, then it also makes it much easier to last and stick with it for that 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We were talking about the book that's coming out for me, and $1 Million Weekend. And it was just more, I'm so excited about, like, this is I believe.
Yep.
Someone asked me, I think it was my cousin. It's like, do you think this works? I was like, yeah.
It works though.
I know. And I was like, yeah. And it was, I guess I surprised myself.
Right.
I knew it. And then I was like, just say it out. So I don't know if it's a Buddhist thing or Dalai Lama, but some of the things that are most sensitive to us, we're embarrassed to share publicly. We're sensitive. And it was like, yeah, right. It works. You're willing to do the work, follow the plan.
Right.
And,
but I think, to your like credit, it's like, you have countless, like, so much data and so much evidence, right? Like, that's
same with My Body Tutor.
I mean, that's where it comes from, and that's why I'm super excited for you for your book.
Well, let's not talk about it, but yeah, find your purpose. Not even find your purpose. That sounds so ominous. And I was discussing this. I think when we started the show and we're talking about find your purpose, I always was so jealous when people found it.
Yeah.
I was like, is it at Kmart? Is it at Amazon? Do you just buy? Is it on Prime?
Right.
And I do have answers for that, but I think what you said, just find the thing you do for free. And the other thing with purpose, I would say, ultimately, which will help you do something like that, is just find something that's hard. I haven't found that my pride and the things I found meaningful, which I do think is also a relation to purpose, were ever easy to do.
Totally.
And so I think there's something really nice about thinking, okay, what am I spending my time? What am I interested in that I can do for 10 years? And it's probably going to be a little challenging. You should find something that's also a little challenging for yourself. Moving on to your customers, to the people you're coaching, what I find super interesting about it, I'm curious who these people are.
Yeah.
And more importantly, I'm very curious what you've learned about psychology of human behavior. Because there's books about habits and there's books about behavior, but you're fundamentally changing how people live. So I'm curious, what are things that people can do to improve what you've observed in habits and ways that people can improve habits in general, not just in eating.
I mean, I think awareness is the first step. So I think, something I've learned is that, every behavior has a motivation, right? So someone might say they want to stop eating ice cream or stop drinking or whatever it might be. And it's like, first understand that behavior is serving you in some way, right? So like on some level, you're coming home after work or during work or whatever it might be, and you want to escape, right? You don't want to, deal with reality, right? So understand how it's serving you. And once you start to understand how your behavior is serving you, then you can find other ways to replace that, right? So that's number one. Number two, I think it's fascinating that like I can only help people solve their problems or challenges until I find out why they like having them, right? So
say that one more time.
I can only help people solve their problems until I find out why they like having them, right? So we all have, like we have these problems, we have these challenges. On some level, we like having them, right? For example, you might say a busy entrepreneur, they identify as, oh, I'm always so busy, right? I have no time. I'm always like, that is serving them in some way, right? And when you can understand how it's serving them, again, it's really fascinating because it opens up a whole world of like, all right, well, maybe it's really distracting you from this. And if we can get to the root of the issue, as you know, I love getting to the root of the issue. For example, when it comes to food, it's never about the food. It's about what the food allows us to avoid and or the void it fills, right? It's never about the food. The food is a symptom. So trying to understand the root issue is the key to sustainable change. I also think, baby steps are really powerful, right? And I think too many people try to change everything at once and you wind up changing nothing at all. But there's so many fascinating things. There's all or nothing people. There's, black and white thinking. There's self-sabotage. There's fear of failure, surprisingly, but actually very common is fear of success. Because, I think fear of success is super interesting because for some people, if they get what they say they want, on some level, their life actually might be worse off, not better off, right? So this actually goes in hand with self-sabotage, right? So my definition of self-sabotage is fearing the very thing you say you want, right? So let's say someone, says they want, this business that serves thousands of people. You could take a small business owner. On some level, every small business owner or some small business owners feel like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. They feel like they're super busy. They have no free time. And they could do all these things to grow their business. But in their mind, if they grow their business, they're going to have even less free time. So they can do all these things. They can buy all the courses. They can do all this stuff. But if they feel like on some level their life is going to be worse off, not better off, then they're going to continue to sabotage. So you have to figure out how self-sabotage is holding you back, right? So if we bring this back to weight loss, for some people, being overweight has been a safety blanket for them, right? So it's like in their mind, it's when I lose weight, then I'll start the business, or when I lose weight, then I'll ask this person out, or when I lose weight, then I'll pursue this, right? But then if they actually lose the weight, then they actually have to do it. So for them, being overweight is actually serving them.
What is a story of someone not working out with My Body Tutor and what happened?
So we do have a ridiculously high success rate. And I say this just because we're not just giving people a plan and then essentially saying, good luck, let's touch base in a week or two. We're coming up with a plan with them. And then every single day we're in communication with them. However, this kind of work can be uncomfortable, right? You're uncovering all sorts of things. And I always say any worthwhile journey in life has what I call FDR, right? Fear, discomfort, doubt, and resistance, right? Fear, discomfort, doubt, and resistance. And you're going to encounter that in any worthwhile journey. And it's what you do in those moments that makes all the difference. And I think for some people, when they feel that, they recoil, they hide, they retreat. Whereas our most successful clients, and we certainly encourage it, and we're there for them, lean into it, they talk with their coach about it, they reach out to them, and they work through it. And I think the difference is when you feel that, inevitably, you're going to feel some sort of fear, discomfort, doubt, or resistance. When you feel it, what do you do in those moments? That's one of the reasons why, and yes, I guess I'm biased, but I believe in coaching so much because you're going to feel that. It's what you do in those moments. And I would say the people who aren't successful They recoil, they hide. For them, it's very hard to ask for help, and they kind of retreat back to themselves.
What kind of customers are spending who's spending $300 a month to improve their fitness and their health and ultimately their life?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's people who have trouble staying consistent. They've tried a lot of things. They're sick and tired of, saying I'm going to start fresh tomorrow or I'll start fresh on Monday. It's people, anywhere from 25 to 85. I mean, we literally had someone sign up. She was 83 years old, and they understand the value of health and fitness. I mean, I've seen this firsthand that your health is the greatest lever in your life. Like when you're more healthy and fit, it is the ultimate productivity tool, right? We talk about all these things like upgrade your computer, upgrade this. Like the biggest upgrade you can get is yourself, right? So it's people who value their health and fitness, who understand that without their health and fitness, nothing means anything. It's people who want more energy. It's people who are sick and tired of, letting themselves down. So it runs, we have tech entrepreneurs, we have, people who work, we have all sorts of people. But I would say the core, client has trouble staying consistent and they want help.
Yeah. And I think one caveat that's, I would say counterintuitive is a lot of these people are very successful.
Oh yeah.
Like I know one of my buddies, even Patrick, I think he's public that he works with you, and he said, "Oh man, these guys shape my life." And it's like super successful in certain areas, and it's like me, and this is something I've only really reflected that I do this very dramatic. I get coaches in everything. You know what I mean? And it's not something we'll go on necessarily this episode, but it's like I worked with My Body Tutor for my fitness coach. I have a marketing coach. I have a business coach. I have a CEO coach. I have a boxing coach. And it's interesting. It's not only the plans, the accountability, and the support, which you guys are awesome at, and not just to plug you guys, even though I do recommend it, but maybe in areas of people's lives, like where could a coach benefit?
I've always admired about that you are like the things you are world class at, you're absolutely world class at, and the things you're not, you will get help. And I think that's what has put you ahead of so many people. Whereas I think a lot of people are all about I got to do it myself. And year after year, they're treading water, they're jogging in place, they never make progress. Whereas the most successful people I know by far, and I'm not just saying this because I own a coach, they'll get help and they're all about it because they know it's going to just expedite and expedite their progress, right? They're going to save so much time.
Yeah. And to your FDR comment, one thing I would add is that Moody Glasgow, he's our CMO, he's my marketing coach, marketing advisor. You don't have to pay full time for people, so you can actually get your service for $300 a month. You get a professional. Like results are guaranteed, I would say, if they go through and they do the work. But what I just as a comment on coaching, receiving coaching is also your responsibility as the receiver. And the main comment I was going to say about Moody is most times the things he tells me to do, I'm like, I don't want to do that. And that's the stuff I need to do. And if I knew to already do it, I wouldn't need Moody, and I wouldn't need him supporting me and say, I've seen it, I've done it. This will work. Let's try it, maybe in a smaller way. You'll see the result, and then you'll keep growing. Because if a lot of times you're like, oh, I'll get my wife to do these things, or I can figure it out. Which sometimes it can work, but I also think it's like the ultimate cheat code in any area you want to improve to find these people and realize you're going to be resistant to something.
Yes,
and be okay with that.
Expect the resistance because, to your point, if there was no resistance, then you're not really doing it. You're doing what you've always done, right? And if you do what you've always done, you're going to get the same result.
100%.
And I think I also think about that a lot. Is like, sure, friends and family might work. I call that like pure accountability versus pro accountability. So my mom was, a former high school English teacher. When it came time for me to take my SATs, she used to tutor for the SATs. She wanted to tutor me. Of course, I didn't take it seriously because she's my mom, right? So I think when you have that, it's just very different with pure accountability. It's very easy to let the person off the hook. It's very hard to kind of call them out and share those hard truths that we all need to hear.
And last thing I want to have you finish this episode off with is you've said this phrase to me, and it's something that is like cemented. Do you know what phrase am I going to say?
I think so, but I don't want to.
Let's just go for it. What's the phrase? What does it mean to you, and how can people cement it in their operating system?
So there's actually two now that I think, because I think in the last few years I've been encouraging for this, but I think it's discomfort is your compass.
That's the original. What would you say the modern one is though?
Choose being powerful.
You have a specific way of saying that one.
Choose to be powerful?
Yeah, there's another, you say,
Well, don't be powerless, be powerful?
you say take your power.
Oh, take your power. Okay.
So you've said it in different ways, but
Right.
what's in my operating system? What's like the code update OS 16 is take your power.
Yeah.
So tell me more about this and how can other people like update their systems with this?
Yeah, I think, it's very easy to have a pity party. It's very easy to kind of just blame. I always say blame equals be lame. And, when you kind of listen, when you're faced with something, there's two choices. You could be powerless and say like, all right, I don't want to deal with this. I can't deal with this. I'm going to put blame on others. Or you can choose to be powerful, right? You can take your power back. And when you take your power back, it's absolutely life-changing. I think you've experienced this. I know you've experienced this. It forces you to take responsibility, right? And it forces you to look yourself in the mirror. It forces you to say, all right, where am I falling short? Where do I need help? And it's very empowering to do that because you're in the driver's seat, right? Because we all know what it feels like when you kind of feel like you're just drifting in life, you're just coasting, and you're not using your power. I think that evolved from discomfort as your compass. I always used to say like, discomfort is your compass because if you do what you've always done, it's going to feel comfortable. If you do something differently by nature, that's going to feel uncomfortable. And I think discomfort and uncomfortable gets a bad rap, but it just means you're doing something differently. And if you're doing something differently, that's great because it means you're going to get a different outcome. So discomfort is your outcome. Discomfort is your compass that led to, take your power back.
And I think about taking my power back weekly.
Love that.
Weekly. And it really applies in every situation where I want to blame, and I'm totally right in my blame. Like it's their fault. And you're like, well, how are you giving up your power here? I'm like, no, it's their fault. Trust me. And you're like, hey, take your power back here.
Yeah.
And you could really start applying it across the board. Your boss, your significant other, yourself, all these different interactions. And what it really does is it makes you feel like you have a choice in the situation and you're not a victim.
Yeah.
And it is empowering. So I really appreciate that you got me thinking about that. You updated my code with it.
Well, man, I mean, it's been fun to watch you put that to work. And, it's been incredible to see what you've done throughout your journey and especially in the last few years.
I'm Gilbert, My Body Tutor.
Thanks so much, buddy. Love you, man.
Love you too. All right, let me get this.